Welcome, my darling pretties, to our Beyond the Dawn of Business podcast for pretty, empowered female entrepreneurs. It's time to step into your power, pretties. Lift each other, support the squad, and choose a life filled with the autonomy and freedom to live your dreams. I'm your host, Dawn Beth, owner and founder of Beyond the Dawn digital business brand and agency. My coffee is hot and my eyelashes are on, so we are ready to go. Hey pretties, welcome to today's episode. I am really stoked to be able to welcome and introduce my lovely dear friend Kerry Moorse. We often call each other Ant and Dec, although I don't think we've ever figured out which one of us is Ant and which one of us is Dec. And today I have invited this gorgeous human onto our podcast so that we can talk about all things to do with digital business that me and Kerry come across all of the time. So first of all, hey, thanks for coming on my show, Kerry.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I've been super excited to get onto here just to join in all of the podcast banter you've been having. I've been loving listening to your episodes. And hello to all the pretties out there.
Yay! And what's really lovely is that every time we have had any opportunities to record video, and we've had plenty of opportunities because we work together quite regularly, but everybody always says how calming your voice is and how you should record all sorts of different things like meditations and ASMR and all of that stuff. So I know that people are going to really enjoy listening to you today because you just have the most lulling, relaxing voice.
Voice fans out there, isn't it? I think it's because when I'm teaching, I go into this calm mode. And I sort of, I just go through it methodically. I either send them to sleep or I guess it works. I don't know.
It definitely works. And I mean, that kind of ties in lovely to what we're going to talk about today, because you and I, we have a really unique and beautiful experience when it comes to our clients. And I often think that people come to us because they think that we are the magic source that will be the thing that lifts their business. And what I really love about all of the conversations that we've had together and conversations and trainings that we've provided for our people is that actually our clients tend to be the genius and we just help them pull that genius out of themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's just about uplifting people to believe that they can do things as well as showing them how. In a way, it's just about making all make sense and being intentional about everything as well, rather than running into scatty land of creating here, there and everywhere. And I think we both complement so well with what we do together, because I'm on the tech side, you're on then the visibility and the social, and you do coaching too, that I think it just really creates a great dynamic so that people can get all of their headset and get everything done as well, so that it just all works then without, scatty brain going crazy.
yeah. And my biggest question that I get asked all the time is, what is the one main thing that you can do wrong on social media? So I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to ask you what your main question, what your top number one question is that you get asked all of the time.
Ooh, I'll have a think.
Yeah, because I always think that these are really cool areas for us to kind of look into. And that is the question I get all the time. What can I do wrong? What if I go and try this thing, or if I do this thing, what's the main thing I can do wrong? That's the major question I get all of the time. And the top one thing that people do wrong in terms of their social media strategy, their marketing, and all of the good stuff that we talk about when we're trying to build that area of their business, is that they can be unsure. They can be unsure about who it is they're trying to target, who it is they want to work with, what their message is. And if they're unsure, they may feel sure right now, but then a couple of weeks down the line, a couple of months down the line, they may change their mind. They want to concentrate on this new thing, or they want to change their narrative or their messaging to this thing. And that by far is literally, I feel, the biggest thing that you can do wrong, and maybe the only thing that you can do wrong, because everything else is testing, everything else is learning, everything else is actually getting your feet wet on all of these different mediums that we discuss. And when it comes to social media strategy, not knowing which direction you want to go is probably the most problematic thing that we have. And it happens across the board, both with people who coach with me and also on our social media side. It goes right through the entire company. And I always think that that's like a really interesting thing to consider, that if you just know what your messaging is, if you know what your ideal client wants from you, and you can look down that area, then pretty much everything from that point you can grow from. Everything from that point you can learn from. How about you? What's your biggest kind of like number one question that everybody asks?
Oh gosh, well, I'd like to say on your point, do you know what? That is actually across the board. So
wow,
it's not just social. We have the exact same problem with people's funnels and customer journeys.
Yes.
Because they create 50 different ways to get people into their list with no clear path, no alignment between what they're actually selling and what they're getting people in for. So it's really similar, and it's interesting to hear you talk about the messaging, because that's what we find is a problem too.
Yeah.
Where people are scattering different types of messaging to different types of audiences, but there's no clear path all the way up.
Yes.
So yeah, that's I think that's a big one actually, really. So yeah, but in terms of the biggest question people ask me, I wouldn't say it's a question specifically. I'd say most people come to me with a fear of tech.
Yes. Yes.
They have two fears. Either they're going to have to do the tech themselves, and that just stops people moving completely, or they don't have time to do the tech themselves.
Yeah.
And that stops them moving completely. So that tends to be the blockage. This fear of thinking they're going to have to spend hours Googling, have to get it wrong, have to do all these things, when really it's way simpler than people think. But it all goes back to, like you say, approaching it creatively rather than thinking of funnels and customer journey as tech, and approaching it from a creative standpoint of what experience am I creating here?
Oh, yeah.
So I hate the word funnels completely, really. I only use it because that's what people associate with what I do, building funnels. But really it's just the experience, just like any other event or experience you would go to, and creating that whole ethos and vibe all the way through for how you're going to be working with them.
That's amazing. That's so powerful. And I had no idea that you didn't like the word funnels. I had no idea.
Yeah, so I actually called my group, didn't I, with the word funnel in, called What the Funnel, because everybody thinks that and everyone teaches that it's a funnel. But I just think that's such a, I don't know, such a marketing-y way to describe it. Yes. You know, it turns everyone into a lead and it makes it quite calculating rather than relationship-based.
Yes, and that's where you and I really agree. Kind of in our core, isn't it? That actually, in order for you to have a sustainable, not just immediately successful, because a lot of people run after that immediate success, and they don't realise that actually there is no such thing as an overnight success, and that immediate success, when it happens, is often a hollow success. It's sustainable. I nearly couldn't say that word then and put my teeth back in. It's sustainable success, and that's on your terms. Success, that whatever that looks like to you, because we have so many people that come to us and their goals are not about being the next billionaire. You know, they're not interested in going to, I don't know, like the Shard and having fancy dinners with billionaire businessmen. That's just not where they're at. They just want the normal things in life that everybody kind of wants, like time with their children and their family, or, you know, time to travel, or the autonomy to say no to jobs that you don't feel aligned with. I mean, is that the same as what you've come across?
Yeah, definitely. I actually did a live earlier on this today, talking about, I know it's really odd, isn't it?
That's amazing. So we've done that thing again where we've synchronized and we didn't know we'd done it.
Yeah. So I came on here not knowing what we were going to talk about yet, but this works really well. But yeah, my live was all about how people focus so much on the lifestyle they want that they don't create the business style they want to get there.
Yes.
And you see a lot of this immediate success, and then it's not sustainable because they have, they've set in their business lifestyle that they want to work 4 hours a day, but to get that success, they have to work 18.
Yes.
So that's an unsustainable model that they're creating right from the beginning. And then when they try to draw back, they get what we call second launch dip. And this is when in the industry, like, we have these second launches which often don't do well because they haven't been able to make that time to bring in a new audience, and they're just reselling to the same people. So it's this focus, this mindset shift of once someone's had some success that they need to then go, okay, did I do that sustainably? Do I need to bring in a new audience to do it in a different way? Because otherwise it all falls down a little bit like Jenga. Oh, and then there's the panic launch that follows because you haven't done as well, and you go, oh, quick, I better do it again.
Yes.
And that one flops.
And it's how many times have you seen that cycle happen?
I wouldn't say loads because I often advise against it, but I've seen it happen externally a lot. Yeah. I have seen it with some clients in my earlier days where, I wasn't really as directive then, and it would happen a lot, and I've seen it happen to friends a lot. It really does, because once people have done something successfully, they do believe that's the blueprint.
Yeah.
But if that blueprint involves unsustainability in the way they want to run their business, it's not a blueprint at all.
No.
It's a never-ending burnout cycle, which is never going to work.
Yeah.
So
that's so interesting. And like I've always thought that I really like looking at other people's models. I really like looking at different people's blueprints, as you will. And I love taking the pieces that fit for me and just having a bespoke, like I devise the whole thing. And yes, okay, I know that this thing works, so I'll, like a pick a mix, I'll take some of that. And I know that this thing works, so I'll take some of that. And quite often with that kind of all the time strategy, not just also with launch, but all the time strategy, I really love being able to see lots of different ways to do it, both in evergreen and live situations.
Yes, definitely.
And then picking what works for me and dropping what I don't feel aligned with, or even sometimes just what I feel like I don't have the energy for, because there's been loads of times when we've created weeks and weeks and weeks of fantastic sales situations that you couldn't ever call a launch. You couldn't ever call it a launch.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and it's just revenue.
Yeah.
Really, rather than it being a launch. And it's interesting, isn't it, how we look at somebody's blueprint and we follow it without ever applying it to our own audiences and lives. And that's what I'm really trying to break people out of that cycle of doing. And I know you do that with your social as well. You're very tailored to their world and their business and what they want to be doing. Do you know what? I remember when we did we were on a video together. So we were Ant and decking it.
Okay.
And I can't remember what we were teaching, but I remember saying, right, because I'm quite efficient sometimes. I'm like, right, we're going to do this in this time. And I think you said, well, I can't promise to do it in that time, but let's give it a go, because I know you love to expand and explore all the different topics. And just thinking about it, that is why a podcast is so perfect for you.
Yes.
Because you're so good at exploring things like that.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that, and it made me laugh because we are a little bit different in that sense sometimes, aren't we?
We are, but I mean, that's one of the reasons why I adore you, because I feel like when we get together, you give me a different side of that coin. Like we complement each other, but you've always
100%.
got that great angle that I haven't considered, and I just love that about our partnership. It's something that I treasure, because I think you need people around you that give you different perspectives and allow you to kind of explore those different areas, and you also have to be open to that. I know a lot of people that have kind of a fixed mindset, and that can be a difficult thing to overcome when you're around brilliant people. Listen. And I've always really enjoyed the relationships that we've made together with other people, and the relationships that I've made throughout my business, just actually soaking up other people's ideas and opinions and being able to understand that perspective. It may not always fit for me, but it's just so illuminating to look at things with a different lens.
Oh, definitely. I think so. I mean, surrounding yourself with lots of different avenues sort of creates your own sort of vibe as well, you know?
Yeah.
You get to take all the things that resonate with you and turn it into something new. And for example, when I'm around you, my boundaries get stronger. Something I know about you is you have strong boundaries.
I do.
And if I'm having a wobble, I know who's going to set me straight. You know?
Yeah, I didn't always, but I've learned the hard way how necessary they are. And yeah, totally.
But yeah, it's just this great insight into everybody around you who you just turn into family, which is, you know, something we're missing a lot in the business space. A lot of it is quite orchestrated and just marketing, and there's a lot of shallow relationships, when really once those have developed into real relationships, it's magical, and you can create something which is so much more than just a business, you know?
That's it. Like, in my industry, and I know we've spoken about this a lot in the past, in my industry, it's almost kind of promoted that you go and you create these hollow friendships, that you don't genuinely believe in them. And I don't understand where that comes from. First of all, I'm not good with that. I can't do that. It shows all over my face whether I like you as a person. I can't fake that. And, you know, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. And even the people who I know are not particularly fans, and I like to call them, you know, the I Hate Rachel Green Club, because I do have a quite significant group of haters. Hey, if you're listening, and I'm grateful for them too, because in truth, I think my relationships, my genuine relationships, of which you of course are one of, I think it's been such a beautiful gift for me. And you need that other side. Sometimes you need to be able to recognize what is a purely business perspective and what is a genuine friendship. I'm not good with that. I tend to just adore people that I work with. Like, if I've given you my energy in that space, I find it very difficult for that to not be like a personal thing. This might make you giggle, Kerry, but my favourite film, out of all the films, which is ridiculous, I know, my favourite film is You've Got Mail. And have you seen that movie?
I'm going to make a really awful admission that I haven't.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's okay. I
haven't seen the film.
So, there's a part, it's got Meg Ryan in it, and it's got Tom Hanks in it, and it's such a kind of like early 90s rom-com. It's the step after Sleepless in Seattle. It's that kind of thing. And there's a part where her business is going under because a bigger chain has come in and become a competitor, and she has this tiny, bespoke, lovely, very personal business that is built on relationships and time and generations of people knowing each other in the old style. And this big competitor, who is Tom Hanks, they have this big kind of chain bookstore, and they don't really care about the people initially. They're just a big brand, and they don't know people by name. They don't know, you know, somebody's child's birthday or anything like that. And in one of the exchanges that they have, he says to her, it's not personal, it's just business. And then towards the end of the film, she says, like, what does that even mean? Because it's my business, it's personal to me, and no matter what happens or whatever I do, it should start by being personal. And that I never realised how much that kind of like seeped into my adolescent brain and kind of took root in there. But that is almost like my entire internal ethos. I find it really, really difficult to disconnect, and I don't really understand why I should disconnect those two parts. Boundaries, yes. Professionalism, yes. Genuine, fruitful relationships where you care about the other people and where you actually build something that means something. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So I bet there's people listening to this now and thinking, oh gosh, I've got some great friendships, but then maybe there's some people I know who it's really convenient for me to know, but perhaps it's not a great sort of long-term thing. What would you suggest for them? I mean, I'm just thinking about it because I've had clients before, and I know, they've gone for opportunities because it's an opportunity and not because it's a genuine thing before. And I just wondered what your thoughts would be on that.
That's a great question, babe. I mean, what I would always say, and this is something that I say all the time to the pretties, especially in one-to-one situations, don't ever leave money, people, or opportunities on the table. Like, think about the cost of a lost opportunity, because that is using your strict business brain. However, just have an open mind. If you know that you're going into a situation and you're doing it on a shallow level, and it's a bit the same as, people who friend request you on Facebook and then invite you immediately to their page and their group.
Oh, that really annoys me.
It's so annoying, right? Like, it's just a really bad spammy practice. And basically what somebody is saying to you by doing that is, you are a number to me. So there is a sweet balance between that and like being totally in love with the person and being like the best friends with them. Like, I understand that, but like, don't leave the opportunity, but be open to the fact that you could actually make real relationships. Be genuine, be authentic. And if you're in a situation where you don't think it's genuine, where you think it's falsified and everybody's social climbing and it's a lot of that fakery, then remove yourself in a dignified and professional way. Like, I'm not suggesting we start calling people out or doing anything that would go against our integrity, but just know yourself with that internal compass that actually, because what that actually is, in truth, is that there's a human being on the other side of that has a giant wall up, and they're performing for everybody else's benefit, but they're not showing you the real person. So you can like a moth to a light bulb, go and start banging your head on that light bulb, thinking that you're creating a relationship with that person because they're still shining and because you still have access to that light. But actually, you're never getting inside towards the actual true light of that person, because that wall is always there. And there is something that is very difficult to put your finger on, but there are ways to figure out when you've gotten into a situation and a relationship you think you're building in a genuine way isn't coming back to you. And it's about that energy exchange. We talk about energy exchange when it comes to money and when we come to collaborations and things like that. It's a very similar thing. I had a best friend at high school who I would have said was like literally the bestest friend in the world to me, and she was during that time. Like, she was there for a season, and she was a really good friend, I felt, at least at that time. And when I went to university and I made other friends, I actually came back and had my 21st birthday back in my hometown, and she didn't turn up to the party. So I rang her up and I said, like, come on down to the party, like, this is my 21st, you can't miss it. And she did eventually. She had to have her arm twisted. She did eventually. And when she came, she had no money, so I had to pay for everything. And then she wouldn't talk to my friends from university. Like, she was not interested in getting involved.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was like the most awkward thing in the world. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, this is my bestest friend in the world, right? Like, she cares about me, and therefore she, these people also care about me, so there's your common ground, there's your in. Anyway, she wouldn't continue. We went somewhere else after the party. She didn't want to come with us, she never did. And I made a conscious decision, there was just something, and I made a conscious decision that I was gonna not call her again. I was gonna wait and see how long it took for her to ring me first. And I don't know what it was that...
Ooh, dangerous ground.
Oh, yeah, right. So, like, I didn't know what had switched in my head, but something had just gone. No, Dawn. Energy exchange. You're always the person that brings this person out. You're always the person who texts first. You're always the person who rings up. You're always the person who pays, who delivers, who coerces, who creates. Like, what happens if you stop? Like, how long will it take for that person to realise that actually this is a two-way street and the phone line goes both ways? And what was really hilarious about that was I didn't hear from that person until I was nearly 26. I got
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got a card through the door at the house I was living at the time with my husband. Bailey had just been born, and I got a card to congratulate me on Bailey's birth. She never rang me again. The year after that party, my dad passed away. She wasn't there. No phone call. She didn't turn up to the funeral. Nothing. So I got that card and thought, well, it's too late now, and that was it. The card went in the bin. She actually lives around the corner from me right now, and we see each other quite regularly. We walk past each other like strangers, and it's sad, right? But I think there is something in us as humans innately that we know when we're connecting to somebody on a genuine level. Like, we know when we can be vulnerable.
100%.
Yeah. And it's looking for that moment and thinking, actually, if I think I have this amazing relationship with this person, how long is it until we speak next time? Like, how long is it until they come to me with something? Because it's like with you and me, for instance. If you said to me, Dawny, I sent you something a couple of weeks ago on Facebook Messenger, can you find it for me? I'd be like, nah, I can't, because we speak so regularly. Neither it's a continuous conversation, right? Like, neither of us start it. It's just, it's ever going.
Ongoing. Yeah, I mean, it's evolving. We never go back and scroll through.
You can't find a damn thing in that thing, which is, I think, is like a beautiful thing, because it just proves that we chat and we check in and we have each other's back all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
And you know what? I think it takes a little bit of bravery as well. Innately, nobody wants to feel unwanted. So recognizing the situation and stepping back when it's not a relationship that's genuine in business or in life, it's being able to do that and step back and to let go of that, and that can be really difficult, I think. But yeah, a bit of bravery it takes, but in the long run it releases you so much. So I think it's definitely a well worth eat that frog moment.
I totally agree. And on the very rare times that it's happened that I've actually reached out and felt like I was building a genuine connection with somebody, to find that actually I wasn't, I never felt like that time was wasted. Like, I've always felt like there was a learning in there for me, there was a lesson in there for me. And also, I think there's something to be said for just living within your own truth. I know that I can sleep well at night knowing that I did my best, I genuinely cared, and had they given me the opportunity and released that wall, then we could have been friends. And I think that that's just something that you have to be able to occasionally put yourself out and try.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as long as everyone in a relationship brings value to it as well, especially in business, because otherwise you can make 100 friends and it would just be a friendship circle rather than a business as well. It's got to be a fruitful relationship in those ways too. There's got to be synergies and alignment with the same values and the same sort of drive and, that kind of thing. For it to, I guess you wouldn't even connect with people unless that was the case anyway,
I agree, and I think you used a really fantastic, powerful word there, because you said synergy. That's such a good word for what it is. And it's like we talk all of the time, like literally probably 90% of the time that you and I are training or talking with clients, we're talking about audience building, and we're talking about the ways in which people can almost create their own Marvel multiverse within their business of their own people, like the people that they are truly aligned with, their ideal clients, people who have similar ideas, feelings, thoughts, all of these amazing things that does give you that synchronicity. And it's the same when it comes to relationship building with other business owners, right? With collaborations and with people that you work with and all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I know we were sort of talking in and out of this, but it really boils down to being pretty simple.
Yeah.
And it just boils down to knowing where you're going, and who you're working with and who you want to work with and what you want your business to look like. And I think once those decisions are made, everything else becomes so much easier. And it's only because everything feels muddled because you aren't streamlined in that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing for most of the clients we have in common with those kind of problems.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, starting my business, I thought was just going to be a financial practice. It was going to be just a business. And it hasn't been that. It's been something so much more than that. It's been like a personal journey. I've had to really, truly learn more about myself as a human than anything else. And you know, I could tell you all the qualifications I've been and got, I could tell you all of the experience I've got, I could tell you everything that's happened with the agency and everything that's happened with the business growth, but actually the biggest learning out of all of that has been who I truly am.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that for myself too. I think I started out with the sole aim in life, and it still is an aim, guys, of not getting a job.
That's a beautiful,
that was
beautiful
my aim.
goal.
I left university, started my first business. I didn't want a job. I think I made about £500 a month, okay? We went round the supermarket with a calculator between me and my now husband, and we didn't care. We loved it. Absolutely loved it. And, you know, it was not, we never even thought, oh, what if we didn't have to walk around with a calculator?
Yeah.
You know, we just gradually grew into that. And then my second business, I made so many mistakes, I don't even want to remember them. But they have taught me so much that by the time coming into this one, I knew how to sculpt it, you know, and to make it how I was, who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do and serve. And even at the start of this business, took me a while to still get to that point, I would say.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, do you feel like it's been a journey? Because I look at my business now and there's no end point for me. It's almost like one of those lava lamps. I can just see it constantly moving and evolving and changing shape. But I don't think there's ever going to be a point where I'm like, oh, okay, so this is it. We've hit the business structure that we want. Because I'm so ideasy, and I know you are too. Like, there's always another thing that we can maybe consider, another theme to tap into. Do you feel the same?
I almost feel, I love the analogy of the lava lamp. I really love it because that's really iconic, I think. I think you should use that somewhere because people usually say like a path or a ladder, and for me it's not, because I want something that I can evolve as I grow and change.
Yes.
So I always think of it as a bit of an epiphany step. So something I do with my one-to-ones is epiphany ladders for the journey. And so we would say, okay, where am I right now? What is it that I already know that got me here, and what will I need to know next?
Yes.
And then that kind of spiders out into this crazy diagram of all the different things, and you choose the one, you know, of all the things you might need to know next, which is the way. Then you go to the next stop and you do it all again, you know? So I just feel like it's this evolving spiral of whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that, you know, I'm hoping to start a family, so that would mean my business will change a lot. Because right now, you know, spending my couple of hours out in the sunshine on the decking is probably not going to be on the agenda when that happens. But priorities will change, and I think a business should be able to adapt with your priorities too.
Yeah, and if there's one person who can clearly see that pathway thinking about adaptability, I'd feel like it is you, because you always understand that way. Like, nothing is ever fixed, and that's what I love when we work with people, is because, like I said at the beginning, like, people think we have this secret sauce. Like, they'll come to me, I'll give them X, Y and Z, and they'll go away and they'll do X, Y and Z, and then next year they'll be a millionaire. And that's not how it works. Like, you come to me and you say, right, I want X, Y and Z, and I'm like, do you really want X, Y and Z? Why is X going to work for you? Like, what is it that you really require? What is it you really want? What is it you really need? I blew somebody's mind the other day when I was talking about the way in which you can structure a Facebook group. And I gave them, just off the top of my head, maybe 5 or 6 different models that we as an agency have devised for completely different messaging, for completely different community builds, completely different structures. And because they've only seen 1 or 2 archetypes of a community in a Facebook group, it just wasn't on their radar that actually there are those of us out here looking at all of the features, looking at all of the different things that can be done, and we're almost, you know, getting into that matrix and changing the code slightly so that it suits our will. And that's something that I always find fascinating. I think sometimes when we're in it, we forget how much we know about it and actually how much out there isn't when it comes to that sort of stuff. And that's why the tech stuff, I always think, is so exciting when people come to work with you for the tech, because you just open the lid on the possibilities.
Yeah. Well, there's so many ways to do things, aren't there? I mean, I think the problem is there's a lot of cookie cutter situations that people buy into, which don't work for them. But there's so many ways, I mean, of making things work, especially with tech and especially with your own customer journey and everything else that you're doing.
Yeah.
That knowing, so some people will just want the simplest way. Some people will want the way that gives them the most statistics. Some people will want the way that their team can manage different things, isn't it? So that it can work for that business.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that bespoke element, because I feel like, and you know I say this all the time, I don't believe in national awareness days. I don't believe in beige cookie cutters, like swipe files for your captions. I mean, I begrudgingly now give caption prompts in my free group and in my pro members group, but they are written by me and the team, because I will not use the same old stuff. It just doesn't work. And actually, the best prompt that you can have whenever you're sharing anything to do with your messaging, whether it would be on an opt-in page copy, or whether it's a sales page copy, or whether it's your socials, is that it needs to come from you and for what it is you're actually trying to achieve. What's your A and B? Like, where is your client right now? Where is it you're taking them to? Because National Talk Like a Pirate Day on the 21st of September or whenever it is not relevant to your client, right? So like I
love that.
I can sell you a calendar or a spreadsheet or whatever that gives you all the national holidays, and depending on your niche, you might pick one or two that's actually relevant, and even then it's almost like it's just beige. I call it beige, and that's what I see it as. It's got no flavour. It's got none of your vibe or your essence in there. Do you find the same thing with like website tech and opt-in pages and things?
Yes, I do. I find that if people aren't sure of who they are as a business, we have to spend more time first working on that, because they'll come to me with a website somebody else has and says, oh, this is what I would like. And I will say, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. So we have to then work together on something to see what elements they like, but really they don't want it to be like anyone else's. They're usually more from a place of fear of not knowing themselves enough, so they're going to go and copy someone successful who had a completely different vibe when they were first starting out.
Yeah.
So it's obviously just going to look copycat, which is really icky.
It's so icky, and it's ineffective.
It really is. It does not work. And I think this is why everyone needs to develop their own path and to have their own intentional sort of vibe, and that to run through everything they do. And, sometimes you may feel you're over-exaggerating so say you're really into your dog and you're posting all the time about your dog, but people only see what percentage of that posts. They don't read all of them unless they're really dedicated.
Well, that's it. I mean, as soon as you post something out, if we're going to use social media as an example, you have lots of gateways you have to get through. First of all, you have to get through whatever algorithm you're dealing with, and the algorithm is like the bouncer on the door, and he's going to decide who's getting in, and he's going to let a certain percentage of the people that are online right now see what you've got, and he might let a certain percentage of the people who are online later see it on their news feed, but then how those initial first set of people see it determines how many more people are allowed into the party. So I think what's really good is, even if you have a fantastic audience that are watching everything that you do, which, by the way, even if you have a fantastic audience, it never happens, but say for sake of argument they were literally waiting with bated breath for you to post, they, even if they did see it, they might not take it in. People need these things to be repeated, and I've heard so many conflicting numbers. You might have a more accurate data span for this right now, but at one stage when it was customer facing stuff, it would be 7 times somebody would need to see your face, like be customer facing, for them to feel like they know, liked and trusted you. And then on the digital space, it was like 21 times. And then I had the lovely Zoe Dew come in and do a training for me once, and she actually said that it was more like 50. And it's getting more and more and more that people are actually, especially depending on what kind of circles they're in, because we work with female entrepreneurs who are in entrepreneurial circles, right? So they're exposed to more of the same of what they're doing, which can skew your perception, make you think everybody out there is seeing everything and that they know what you know, and that's just not it. You have to repeat, you have to get out there, and you have to repurpose, and you have to say the same. That's why the consistency in the messaging is so important, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I tell you what, why don't we just make a new calendar? So we said, no national days. Let's make a new calendar. We'll pick a different day that's relevant to our businesses every day of the week, and decide on our key topics and values. And there you go, done.
That's it.
We'll start a movement.
And this is the thing, like, whenever we do audience attraction, we're just coming to the end of audience attraction 2021, and it's always the most beautiful time, because we've gone through all of the kind of tangible, practical information. We've gone through the digital marketing information. We've gone through statistics. We've gone through the numbers. We know how to look at our metrics. We know how to look at our insights. And now's the time that you just really have to step into your light. You step into your power, and it's your bespoke moment to actually make it whatever it is that you really want to make it. And I always think that's such a beautiful thing. And what I really love about what you do is that you create ways for people to show up. So it's like, we may teach people on one side how to make a beautiful graphic and how to like get on stage and be there, and you're like the person who gets everybody there to sit in the seats so that person can really shine, and you give all of these different ways for their audiences to actually show up for them, and it flips that switch.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's so much easier than people think. People overcomplicate this so much, and it's just as easy as deciding, those initial few questions we talked about.
Yeah.
Who you are, who your audience are, what you're selling, and how it helps. And I know that sounds so basic, like it really does, but it's so right. And I think we pivot so much and we change so much that we don't go back to that basic enough.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people come to me because their systems are all in a mess.
Yeah.
Because they've changed 4 times and they're not sure if their audience are keeping up with them. They've got, 5 different freebies. Some of these were for this part of the business, and some of these are no longer relevant, and some of these are now. And they just go, oh my goodness, I don't even know if my audience want this.
Yeah.
I'm selling this new thing. Are they even relevant anymore? And when people get really confused, I just tell them to go back to their audience and get some content bank stuff. So what are people saying? What questions are they asking?
Yeah.
What's the language they're using?
Yes.
And then use that for yourself, and it helps you reposition yourself to understand what you're doing is resonating with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's it's not rocket science, but I think it's breaking away from that mold of cookie cutter kind of, this is the only way to do things, sort of coaching / world in a way.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. And I think this is why we really like editable things. Like you and I have a love for things that are editable. Because it just gives people a framework, but not anything that is set beyond them being able to make it their own. And I love that. I always think that is just one of like the nicest things that you can do when you give people tools, is just give them something so that they can get on their feet and they can understand the process, but then allow it to be totally fluid to whatever it is that they need.
100%. I mean, I mean, I remember getting a call from a client, and she was in pretty het up panic. We were in launch mode, and that can be pretty stressful. And she was trying to, I think, develop on a house at the same time, and it was all getting too much. And she was only ringing to ask my permission to move her own launch back. And that was it. Well, she couldn't, because she was following this plan that she'd been given, and she felt she had to stick to it. I was like, no, it's your business. 1, no one knows it's happening yet. You can put it whenever you want.
Yes.
2, good. Take a break. Relax a bit. Do you want to change it all up? Do it. It's really about what works.
I love that. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about having a business is that autonomy. And I use that word consciously all of the time, autonomy, because that's one of the greatest treasures, I believe, in working in the way that we work. Is that there is nobody to ask permission. There is nobody who can tell us no. There's nobody who can tell us that that idea won't work. I mean, I come from a corporate background where I wasn't in a position to always execute the ideas. And again, like through gatekeepers, you have an idea and you pitch it to one person, and then they have to be on board before anybody else hears it, and then they have to be on board before anyone else will hear it. And by the time you get to the end, almost like the excitement's gone out of it. And oftentimes as well, in such a fast-paced business world, sometimes the opportunity's gone. Like we have in our businesses the opportunity to see something happening, and we don't have to ask anybody else's permission. We can literally jump on it straight away. And we saw this, I don't know if you saw the amazing Weetabix and beans fiasco on social.
Yes, I did. Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so that
was on Twitter, wasn't it?
That was on Twitter, and it was so hilarious, and it was the work of some of the most genius, hilarious social people. Just the best social media managers in the country came together and snowballed. And it isn't a situation whereby everybody had a meeting beforehand and said we're going to do this and this. It was a situation where we knew that Weetabix and beans were going to do it. We knew that was going to go out, and you had a very short amount of reaction time to decide whether you were going to be on board with it. The people who had the autonomy to make that decision for themselves, that were in those situations, and they're allowed to post on behalf of the brand, you will see if you look at the timeline, they jumped straight on it. It was quick, it was witty, and before you knew it essentially supported that trend going up, right? But there were a number of people who wanted to be involved that couldn't post because they didn't have the autonomy, the authority from their brand. They needed somebody to say, yes, that's okay, I clear that. And they missed the boat. And for days later, these funny posts kept coming out, these secondary posts. And don't get me wrong, they were still great. But there was definitely an upward spiral. It's like surfing. That there were so many of them that were on the top riding that wave that, by the time it's over and done with, you've still got a few people trying to talk about it, and the moment's gone. It's gone.
Yeah. So having that autonomy, I think that's the magic of why a lot of us are in business, being our own person, our own boss.
Yeah.
That's definitely true for me. Although I will admit, I definitely lost that by working for a lot of clients at once. And I remember a phase where I was working as if I had 50 bosses, and I was the yes girl to all of them. So I had a brilliant coach who sort of rechanged up my business model for that with me, and that changed everything. And that was all about stepping into my own decisions and running things rather than being run by everyone else. And I think being able to do that and step into it in a way you can take control is the game changer for so many people. I think that takes you from almost being, creating a job for yourself to creating that business.
I love that. Because I think those of us that have got those people-pleasing tendencies, we can accidentally slip into creating unachievable levels of expectation on ourselves on behalf of our clients. And I was having a really amazing conversation with some ladies that I'm currently on a course with yesterday, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about how you can almost directly draw a line from that to your own feeling of confidence and self-worth. I know when I used to people please, it was because I wanted them to be happy, obviously, but also there was a part of me that wanted to validate that I was as good as I said I was, that I was as good as other people said I was when they were referring me. Like, I wanted to show up as that person who was just so amazing at their job. And I don't feel the need to do that as much now. I love the way that you described that in terms of switching up your business model, because I used to think from the old style of kind of thinking, like, the customer is always right, and I adore all of our customers, but I'm here to tell you that there has been plenty of times when our customers, as beautiful as they are wrong. they don't understand what they want. They don't understand what they need, and they've hired me to be able to guide them through that process, and they've hired me to be able to support them. Now, oftentimes people will come to us and say, Dawn, I really want this thing, and I will give them the option, like, I would love to work with you on this, and I would love to develop this for you because I feel like there's more that I can bring to this. No, I just want this one thing. Or if it's in the agency side of things, like a design or a management, then I will, obviously we will give you that one thing. But that one thing, if you're not willing to have that open mindset, if you're not willing to have those discussions, if you're not willing to kind of truly dig deep into what your actual objective is, then that thing that you think you need might actually not serve you the way you want it to serve you. And if there's a clear goal or a result or an objective, it's so hard for us to be able to support you with that unless we've been able to know what that is in development.
Yeah. Do you know, I came across a thread of web developers, and they were talking about that they create mini portfolio sites specifically for terrible website designs. Because it's that there were clients out there who really wanted what they wanted, so it looked like they had got a pen and drawn it themselves, and that's what they wanted and would not budge. So regardless of how good that web developer was, and how great a design they might be, this is what the client wanted. They were creating these portfolios of horrific sites, poorly converting, poorly written, clashing, terrible visuals, and people were actually going for it because they went, well, that's what I want, without even thinking about what they might need. And that's where this element of guidance is so important that you do as well. And we all do, because we care about the outcome for that client. And you do have the occasional ones who say, nope, I don't want any of that, I want this.
Yeah You're so right. And I think it is that sweet balance between knowing what you want and figuring out what you need. But also it's not a fixed thing. Like, if you work with the right people, it's an open collaborative discussion. And if you was to walk into any big brand in the UK or the US, and you walked into a boardroom, there would not be one person saying, this is the decision I'm making for the entire company, and nobody else is allowed any input. What happens is discussion occurs, all the different factors that are important to that result driven success occurs, and people bounce ideas and they discuss, and it evolves, and it covers all of the bases, and then comes back to that beautiful spectrum of whatever it was always meant to be. And this is where I think sometimes, obviously, being a solopreneur or a small business owner, we can forget that actually there are lots of different ways to still have that collaborative thinking and open discussions and support.
Definitely. I mean, taking us back to what we were talking about with genuine relationships, having people you can trust with your ideas, who you can bounce off and talk with and get creative with, and they're just as genuinely pleased for your idea developing as you are. And, you have no fear of them taking any elements of it and things like that. It's just a creative, collaborative process. And yeah, I think that's always quite important because we can get a bit lost in our own genius sometimes.
Yes.
As well as, everybody thinks they really know what they need. Sometimes they don't know all the options too.
That's true. That's so true. And I always think that things like that are the gateways to new opportunities, because I know a number of times I've bounced ideas off with people that I trust, and I've said, well, I really like this type of idea and I'm thinking about doing this. And then on the other side of that conversation sometimes can be somebody saying, oh, Dawn, I do something that's not the same as that but complements that. I do this, this and this. Why don't we do something together? Or why don't we develop our ideas with the other coin in mind? Like you and I do that already. We work, whenever we create anything in the agency in terms of that's going to be within your funnels, we're always thinking about your team and your funnels and what works for you and what's right, and how that can fit in almost seamlessly. And I think that's such a beautiful thing for the customer, for that client, because then they don't have to worry about everything. Like, it's all just sorted for them, but it's not cookie cutter. It's totally still bespoke.
Yeah, and it creates magic, and it just creates such higher value for a product that it just stands out then. And you create your own USPs that way too, and by bringing in other things you couldn't even think of, because all you can see is what your competitors are doing. I can't even say it. Did I say that right?
You did.
Competitors.
Yeah.
What your competitors are doing, I'll say it again just for clarity, that you kind of only see that, and other people can see it differently too.
Yeah. I find that word really difficult, because I used to say all of the time, like, I come from a background where competitor check was a real thing. That was a real task. Competitor check was something that you did regularly, and it was multifaceted. It was an in-person check. It was an online check. It was a market research from the industry comparison check, and there was lots of different elements to it. And I came into this world saying there is no such thing as a competitor. There are only collaborators and other providers, and I've realised now that there is, when people say competitors, that's kind of a wide spectrum for somebody who would never be a collaborator, who would never be a friend. So I guess from that term you'd have collaborators, other service providers, and, as awful as it is to say it, but haters. And I've had a really, really funny experience in the last couple of months where I actually got told something about myself, about another industry person, somebody who is well known in my kind of like circle, and it was like, oh, this person really hates you, like she doesn't like you because of this thing about you, and the thing that was said about me, it's not true. It's like,
oh no,
seriously?
Wow, you're hearing rumours about yourself now.
Oh gosh, yeah. And like, it's part and parcel, and I've had so many clients that have come to me and said, oh, Dawn, I've heard that so-and-so has been talking to me and all of this, and it's such a difficult situation to move through, but actually it's none of our business. It's nothing to do with us. When somebody's talking about us in that way, it's nothing to do with us. And the person in question, I don't have a relationship with, so there's no hard feelings. I actually, I'm sending lots of love to anybody who is like that. It really does not matter to me. But what I found really interesting was that even now, even in this great time, and I do feel like there's been a massive shift in the industry where we are supporting each other, we're empowering each other, we're lifting each other.
So much.
Not everyone is on board with that still. Like, people haven't evolved to that point where they'll take something that's not even genuine information and use that as a reason to dislike you, having not even ever taken the time to get to know who you are. And I think that's sad. But I do also think as well that it comes down to, when we talk about qualifying leads, it comes down to that same thing. Like, you've got to qualify your circle. And I love that saying that, like, if you hang around with 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th. Or if you hang around with 5 people who can never see the good side of life and can't find anything positive in any situation, then you'll be the same. I mean, have you found that to be true with yours as well?
Yeah, well, so I would say definitely. I mean, the people you hang around with, they just rub off on you.
Yeah.
It happens, and you can't even help it. You absorb that. I know there are times when I need to be in a really positive place.
Yeah.
So there are people that I will arrange to meet after that time, for example. You know, with love, I will then move any arrangement to meet them to later on.
Yes.
So, yeah, for example, my husband, he is the most laid-back, positive guy, my sounding board. And every day he's pulling me back from crazy ideas. He was like, you're just going to get too busy and overwhelmed if you do that. But, you know, I would say his vibe rubbing off on me is a major thing for me, and it both lifts us up.
Yes.
So, for example, you know, me and you often make me look way more into myself and set my boundaries and all of that kind of thing, which rubs off on me then as well.
Yeah.
And I have other friends with these fantastic qualities, and it all just absorbs, so you become a better version of yourself.
Yes.
Each time. And yeah, exactly the same negatively as well. But yeah, I definitely do have that sort of vibe. There are like some family members who don't really believe in business, or, you know, don't really know what I do. So I know for a fact I won't visit them during times when maybe I'm launching something or going into product creation ideas, or I need to be really creative on a client project.
Yes.
Because it'll just change my mindset when I approach it.
Yes, I love that. And I made a post on Instagram. It was a reel, I think, a little while ago, and it actually came from a conversation that I'd had with a family member, and it was to do with personal stuff. Actually, it wasn't necessarily to do with business, but it just felt so similar to conversations I've had about business previously with people who aren't in the industry and don't understand what it is that we do and just don't quite get it. And I sat, and for the first time in my life, rather than taking on this other person's ideas, because I used to be an absorber of everything, I'm getting really good with my diet. And when I say my diet, I mean not just the things I eat, but the things I watch, I read, I consume, content. I'm getting really good with kind of like cutting out all the crap or all the things that isn't in alignment. And I had this conversation, and as we were talking, I could see that this person loved me. I could see that this person was concerned about me, and that initially the reason why she was speaking the way she was out of concern and care, because she doesn't understand. But what she actually did, without being conscious of it at all, was she spoke fear into my plans where there was no previous fear. And that felt like I was so grateful for the experience, because I don't know if I've ever sat in a conversation like that previously and been able to step out of my emotion and see what is before me with such a clarity that it couldn't touch me. Even this person who I absolutely adore, could not speak fear. It was an unshakable confidence in myself and my decisions that I get where you're coming from, and I love that you love me that much, but there is no possible way for you to understand, and therefore I discount what you're saying almost completely. And I do that a lot now. I've gotten really good at saying no, thank you. I love it when people tell you about yourself and you don't resonate with it, and I'm like, well, no, actually, that's not how I feel. And I never used to be like that. I used to be the type of person who would be like, yeah, you're so right. Maybe I need to look at that. Maybe I need to work on that. And I would just totally, like, just a sponge, just absorb. And now I feel really strong in my conviction, in my resolve, that actually I have a great understanding of who I am, what I want, and that if you speak to me and it speaks to me in a way that I totally resonate with it and it aligns with me, then great. But if it doesn't, I'm really good at noticing that, and I can just kind of say, yeah, that's not how it is for me.
Yeah. So that level of awareness is super powerful. Being able to be so aware of somebody else's situation and your own situation, to be able to step out like that. Yeah, I love that. I think that's an incredible tool you can use in all the coaching situations as well. I will ask you though, is this diet as hard as an actual diet? Because otherwise, there's going to be a bit of a roadmap there.
To be totally honest with you, the consumption of other things and other people's kind of like ideas and narratives and objections and all of that, that's actually easier to cut out than the real food. Like, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm doing really good at cutting out like the crap TV and the things that don't serve me, unless you talk to me about actual real diet, and then I do still fall down in that area. But I mean, Kerry, it's a process. Like, I'm learning, I'm growing every day. Like, literally, I'm growing every day.
Well, that's amazing. Because I was going to say, I can't cut out ice cream. It ain't happening.
No, for sure. And you know, one of the things that I've been learning recently, I've been doing this amazing positive psychology course with Nick Pigeon, and one of the things that I've really been learning is that actually there is so much more to the way that we think and the way that we structure our day. And as I mean, I could bore you to death, and we're nearly at time, so I won't do that to you, but it's just been really illuminating. And I think I had qualities in this area before, and that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to going and getting certified in this area, because I knew that I'd be able to bring it into the business. So I kind of recognised this. I felt like it was a personal strength and skill, and then I've walked into this whole thing, and it's not just a personal strength and skill, it's an actual fully fledged science, and this science is so illuminating. And I love everything. You know that I've done the psychology of selling previously, and I've done the theory of aesthetics. I love digging deep into our minds and figuring out how influence is created, and how, you know, we persuade people, and how digital marketing works. And what I really love is being able to understand how all of that works, and only ever use it for powers of good.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I love, one of the things we often talk about, actually, that we're incorporating into our collaborations, is that positive psychology throughout people's funnels, social customer journeys.
Yes.
Because often people seem to have that negative vibe, if you better do this or this will happen, kind of vibe. So that's going to really channel for you. That's great.
Yeah, and this is something that you and I speak about all the time, right? Like, so when we have a situation whereby you go onto somebody's sales page and they can purchase something, and it's like, the button to buy is, yes, I'm in, I want to change my life. But then the button to not buy or skip that page is like, no, I don't care about my success, or no, I'm happy being a failure, or no, I accept that I'm never going to do what I want to do in my life, or whatever. And it's like, I find that really difficult when I see it, because I appreciate the psychology behind it. I know that when somebody writes a sales page like that, it's in order to get somebody to commit. It's to fuel them and divide, you know, those people. It qualifies a lead. You know, if somebody's really in and they're hyped and they're excited to be in, then they're going to click buy, and if they're maybe not of that energy, then they'll click the other one. But I think you've got to be really careful, especially with just the massive rush of people who now do business online. You have to be really careful with those messages that you're putting out into the world. And if you're saying to somebody that not buying my product right now means that you will definitely fail, that's not cool, man. Like, I'm not cool with that. I think that's an element where you're really... You're looking at something and you're triggering something and you're poking a bruise there that you have no idea how deep or meaningful that could be for somebody, and what that could actually do to how they feel about themselves or their business or their motivation. And I just think that there are some ethical practices, and this is what you and I adore about bringing this in.
Ethical funnels.
Ethical funnels.
And it's something we're very passionate about.
Yeah, ethical digital marketing, funnels, audience building, the whole shebang. Because unfortunately, because there are proven sales results and data towards the other side of things, it has made them really popular. It's made possibly people who have a high level of integrity go against their own methods, their own kind of like... I know people that have made sales pages that have been quite harsh, and those people are like just the loveliest, sweetest, kindest people in the world. But, you know, that's what a sales page looks like, Dawn. But it doesn't have to be. Like, your sales are dependent on that hard sell all the time. And those icky sales techniques can sometimes be more damaging than they are good, you know? So I think that is always something that I love talking to you about. Like, we could literally chew the fat of that all the time.
I think we could. There's a couple of things there. It's what people have been taught, isn't it? People have been taught to do it this way, so they think that's the way to do it. So that's something we're both passionate about changing.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact people who use that negative languaging have an impact under somebody's mindset and also give a negative association to your company.
Yes.
So they leave your company feeling like crap. That's what they associate your company with. And then also those people who do jump in and buy because they're doing it out of a place of fear of not buying often get buyer's remorse and ask for a refund.
Yes.
And you've got that 2-week period where you do have to
give
a refund.
Yeah.
And most people will give a refund in that situation anyway. So on the whole, it's really not worth it. It's not worth alienating people. It's not worth having to deal with more admin.
Yeah.
And to have that association with your business as giving that negative vibe for anyone who doesn't, take the plunge, so to speak. Because people, we can't see who's reading our pages. We don't know who's on the other end.
No.
So it's that, like you say, the ethical ramifications of that, as well as the sales as well.
Yeah, totally agree. And I always think that it's such a strange situation because, if we were going to combine our brains for a moment and we were going to ask one question of our audience or of our client, the pretties or whoever's listening right now, I think I'm safe to say that our main question we would always ask is, how do you want your customers and clients to feel?
I was literally just going to mouth that and be like, yeah, that's right.
Right? Like, we talk about it all the time. What is that feeling? I know that, there are lots of different ways to skin that cat. There are lots of different ways to make money. There are lots of different ways to make the sale. But how do you ultimately want your people to feel after that interaction with you? Is it going to be a positive interaction?
You never want it to be a negative interaction. That would just be the worst impact you could make. And if your business is about creating impact and helping others, which usually they are, even if you're just selling products of no consequence to make how people feel, the experience you create behind that does.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important everyone keeps that in mind.
Yeah, agree. Okay, my darling, I feel like that was... we just ended on 111. 1 hour and 11 minutes. OMG. I know that some of my pretties are going to love that. It was meant to be. But I think that's a really good time to cut it off. So I just want to say a massive, massive thank you for your time today, darling. I know how busy you are right now, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me. And we should get together and do this again because this has been fun. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone over a few acres there. Thank you for having me, Dawn.
Thank you, darling. And everybody listening, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to come and find us in the Social Pretties group. And until next time, I'll see you soon. If you're loving our Pretty podcast, come on over to Social Pretties, our online safe house and sisterhood community. It's a safe space where female entrepreneurs connect and thrive in a warm, welcoming fold of pretty amazing women. You'll find an easy redirect in the description, and I can't wait to see you in there. And depending on where you're listening right now, we would love it if you would click subscribe or follow so that you can be the first to know when our new podcasts come out.